Since arriving at Bloodstone University, I'd been told a whole lot of things I'd found hard to believe. Not least of all that I was the sole surviving member of one of the 5 ruling families of fear-based magic. I wouldn't have thought anything could surprise me at this point. But now I found myself tensed on the end of my bed. The warmth of the midday sun that streamed through my dorm room window made suddenly distant by the thudding of my heart. Unable to do anything but stare at Lillian Ravengard as I struggled to process her last words. "You think my mother is still alive," I repeated. The birth mother who'd supposedly died when I was 2, 17 years ago. Lillian, who'd told me she'd been one of my mother's closest friends, looked as discomforted with the idea as I felt, though probably for different reasons. "The small team of black suits who've been working on this with me haven't been able to confirm it for sure," she said. "In the past month, I've noticed a few subtle but unusual occurrences around possessions I have that she gave to me. The other day, I took a tiny sample of your skin. I'm sorry for the subterfuge, but I didn't want to say anything until I had more concrete evidence to go by. And using that, we were able to see a resonance in a seeking spell that suggested a genetic relative." The other day? Oh, the day she'd come to see me here on campus, asking if I'd seen any unusual effects, and brushing her fingers over my arm with a brief pinching that I'd wondered about afterward. I rubbed my wrist instinctively. I didn't trust the woman in front of me, no matter how much a fixture she'd been in my family's life when I was too young to remember. She was high up in the Black Suits, the Fearmancer law enforcement organization that had killed my adoptive parents in front of me this past spring and arrested me on a false murder charge just a couple weeks ago. A few minutes ago, my familiar had identified Lillian as the actual murderer of my friend and roommate Imogen. But I couldn't see why the woman would lie about this, especially in private. I had enemies high up in the Fearmancer community who wanted to crush my spirit and get me under their control, and she appeared to have allied herself with them. But nothing about her suggestion or the way she was acting felt like it played into one of those schemes. Of course, there were plenty of other reasons to question the idea. "I've seen the report on the attack where I was kidnapped," I said. "There are photos of the bodies, my mother's and my father's." "I know," Lillian said, her gaze dropping to her hands. "I took part in the investigation. That's behind some of my hesitation to share this possibility with anyone, including you. My best guess would be that the body we took to be your mother's was a conjured replica. It was burned so badly we couldn't definitively identify it as her, but everyone else who'd been in the building was accounted for, and the basic details matched up." "Who would have made the replica?" I asked. "You think the Joymancers did that during the attack?" "Given the other information we have, that's the only conclusion that makes sense." Lillian swiped a hand across her mouth. It didn't dislodge her frown. "They took her prisoner at the same time as they kidnapped you, and they conjured the replica so we wouldn't come looking for her. Maybe they meant to do the same for you, but our forces got to the scene too quickly. I'm not sure." "And then the Joymancers, what, took her away to some prison?" It was hard to wrap my head around that idea. My mother had been the most powerful person in the building at the time of the attack, possibly the most powerful person in the entire Fearmancer world. The Bloodstones were considered the highest family among the Barons. It'd have been hard enough for anyone to overpower her. To risk taking her prisoner? True, I'd learned enough about Joymancers in the last few months that I no longer assumed they had to have good intentions. The mages who got their power from provoking joy in people could be just as vicious as those who got power from fear. But even without assuming good intentions, what would be the point in capturing one of the Fearmancer Barons and holding her captive for years on end? They'd shown no qualms about killing the other Fearmancers who'd been there during the attack. What would they have wanted her alive for?